first thing, so John, were you able to log in? Did you
I
get that?
was.
Perfect. Okay. So as you know, your application is hosted on our remote servers. And what that allows you to do is work from anywhere, which is great. They also, of course, handle things like backing up, and it just takes all of that onus off of the user. And it also gives the advantage that I can do your upgrades after hours and things like that because I have remote access. Um, so I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to do our training with sample data. And so the first thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to close the company for me. I'm going to close this company. So when you're logging in, you're probably familiar with this screen. So this is your Sage login. It says open company, and it's got the down arrows for all your databases, of which you guys have quite a few. So anytime you have an issue logging in, it's always helpful to know, is it your server login or is it your Sage login? So your Sage login is where you've got the company drop down and it says open company. The server login, of course, is the website. And then when you click on the Sage 300 icon, it'll prompt you to put in the password again, because that's just how life is anymore. We have to do dual factor everything. So anyway, the passwords, as you probably figured out, they need to be 8 characters long with the enhanced security, and you need one each of a capital, a lowercase, a number, and a special character. So I'm guessing you've already figured that out. If you want to change your password, I assigned you one, but if you want to make it something of your own, you just click this change password. Your user ID, John, will show up, or Felicia. You'll put in your old password and then you'll put your new one in twice. And then, of course, I do that because I'm leaving it blank because I don't actually want to change it. And then you would just put the new password in.
So
Um,
John, you've been this far, right? John.
I have, yeah. I've been in
Okay.
multiple different companies at this point.
Company.
Okay.
Perfect.
On our list, you'll notice there's some at the very bottom that start with Z.
Yep.
Those are closed. Carol's
Yep. Those are
closed those
your
for
old.
us. The
Yep.
old
Those are
hotel
your
ones.
old databases, the
Yeah.
hotels and other entities that are no longer in use. We leave them up. It doesn't cost you anything to have access to your old data. If it ever annoys you, we can drop them off. But I'm a big fan of just saving everything. So anyway, you choose your company here. The session date, all that does for you is it's going to create a default for the transactions you enter. So, for example, if you're working on closing out September, which I'm guessing you guys will be doing very soon, you can make your session date 9:30, and that way, if you're entering a batch or something like that, or doing a bank rec, your transaction dates will default to 9:30. It just saves you typing. You don't have to change the session date. I'm going to actually change my session date to 5/31/2020 because that's the sample data. It's like at 2020 dates. So I'm going to click OK. And now you'll see down here in the status bar on the lower right, you'll see a couple things. You're going to see your session date, which tells, my login date. You're also going to see an icon. That's your print destination icon. So you can see if I hover over this, my print destination is set to preview. You can also choose your print destination up here. That's actually important for a new user to do, is to set your print destination. Now you have to do it for every company because your print destination choices are by company. So if you're in the foundation, You'll need to change your print destination to preview or whatever. So your print destination is when I print a Sage report, where is it going to go? It's either going to go to a preview or a printer. Those are the most common. You can also set it to a file. Email doesn't work because your Outlook is not attached to your hosted server. So don't bother with that. That'll just not really work. The next three check boxes are important, especially the first two: report paper size and report orientation. You want to make sure they're checked. Report paper size tells Sage to respect the paper size used when the report was designed. The internal Crystal report was designed. So in this case, it's going to be letter. Report orientation does the same thing. If you don't have that checked, then it's going to use your printer defaults, which is most likely going to be portrait. And the problem with that are there are some reports in Sage that are designed to be landscape. Because if they're portrait, they're going to be cut off. Like if you print out an AP detailed open payables or aging, you might not see the last one or two columns if you don't have report orientation checked. And you'll be calling me to say, I think there's something missing from my aging, and that's all it is. Use A4 in place of letters for the UK. A4 paper size is a little bit different than our letter. And then default paper size, just choose letter, and then you can click OK. So right now I've got my destination to preview so that I can look at it on screen before I send it to my printer. And that's handy because sometimes that's really all you need is to take a look at it on screen. Other things in the toolbar, Open Company will allow you to open another database. If I click this, I can just choose one. That would close the current company and open a new one. Close company is simply it closes the company you're in. Page setup. That's just your report paper size. That's where you can choose to print on both sides or not. That's really about all it does. Because
Carol,
the rest, Yep.
excuse me, you can't have two companies open at the same time, correct?
you can.
You can.
Yes,
Okay.
you can. And a lot of people do. So, but you wouldn't do it from here because this toolbar tells me open company using this Sage 300 instance or session. Okay. So what you would do if you wanted to have another one, you'd go back to that website that has your login. Just click the Sage 300 again. So if I'm not on the online version right now. So if I click on this again, it's going to open another instance of Sage 300, allowing me to open a different company. So you can see I've got two now. Okay.
Okay.
So if you're in two companies like most of your day, I think I've set it up so you do have the different colors at the top to indicate that I'm in the foundation versus something else. That's one way you can tell which one you're in. The other way, so if I go into sample day, I'll just go into this one here and put in my password. So now you can see, well, this is really bright pink and this is just bright pink, but you can see this is RD Sample Company and this is Sample Company Inc. So yes, you can have multiple Sages open for sure. Yep. So we'll minimize that one. Object, so you really won't do much with these things. An object is like it's an icon. If I click properties, you can see that this is just my AR transactions folder because that's what's highlighted right now. Up one level just takes me up. So if I If I'm in here, for example, and I want to just go up one level, it takes me to the thing I was in last. Okay. View allows you to choose your how your Sage is laid out. So right now I've got it by icons. You can also have it set by details, which sort of shows you more a folder view. And again, it's either one's fine. It's just a matter of preferences. Macros you're not using, so you can ignore it. That's like if you had a custom programming thing that had been written for you, you might use that as might be a macro. Notes can be attached to vendors and customers if you're using accounts receivable, and inventory items if you are using inventory, which I know you're not. So that's notes. We'll get into that when we look at AP. Website just takes you to the Sage 300 website. Okay. And then Sage Data and Analytics, that's another reporting tool which you guys have not purchased. You don't need it, I don't think. It's very robust, very powerful. Mostly, for bigger entities. I don't think you'd like the price tag either, but that's what that is. So that would take you out to this web-based reporting tool. The help menu has some important stuff in it. Obviously, you can look up any help options in Sage. So for example, if I am on an invoice batch list and I want to read about it, I can either click the help menu and go to help topics. And you can see this opens up a website as well. Let's see what's new when we upgrade you, it'll show you, oh great, that's not working. That's fabulous. So don't bother with that one. Product documents, that takes you to the documentation. So you choose your version and then you click and then you can read the release notes or, user guides. So user guides might be something you might take a look at. Those are the PDFs that have all the user guides for all the modules. Okay. Let's see, Sage support, again, knowledge base, live chat, online community, Sage University, additional training. Licenses, if you were to ever call Sage and they wanted to know, what's your client ID, you can go to licenses, click license manager, and it'll show you your client ID. Of course, you can also ask me. I'm happy to tell you. Let's see what else. Current users. So right now it shows one person is in admin, that's me. But you can also see your maximum user count, who's, how many are logged in at the moment. And so if you're doing, for example, you're doing year end and it says, you can't do year end or you can't do create new year until everyone's out of Sage, then you can go to help current users. It'll list them. It'll show the screens they've got open and what company they've got open. So like you could say, hey, Berlene, I need you to close the foundation. I'm creating the new year or something like that.
Okay.
Let's see, Atrix Filing Center, that's for your 1099s. And that's really it. If you ever have an idea, you can submit a product idea. But mainly what people use is their current users and the product documentation. Those are the two things. So I'm going to briefly go through common services. So the company profile is where you specify your company name, your tax ID, what is your currency if you have 12 or 13 fiscal periods. So this is pretty much set it and forget it. When you purchase the product and we created the databases, all these things are pretty much set. But for example, if you had to change your company name or, you changed to an LLC from something else, you would change that here.
Okay.
And we call this common services because it's common to your entire Sage 300 environment. Like back in the old days of DOS, you would have to put your company name and address in the AP module and the AR module and the GL. And if you had inventory and order entry, you get the idea. It was kind of onerous, but this is all like in one place. Your fiscal calendar is maintained in common services because, of course, that impacts everything in Sage, your fiscal calendar. So at the end of the year, like if you guys are a calendar year in, and I think you are, you're just going to go to fiscal year, like in December, click the plus to add 2026, hit save, and that's going to allow you to start doing transactions in AP or bank rec or AR. You can also lock fiscal periods here. So once you're, for example, once I'm finished my year end or my period end for January, I could just double click lock column. I can always also lock individual modules. And what that does is it prevents people from inadvertently posting to these periods. Now, what I always recommend is when you're ready to start the new year, go back to the current year and lock the first couple periods, because in January, we all tend to enter the wrong year, you know. So in 26, you're going to be wanting to type 25. So if you lock your columns, if you lock your period, that'll prevent you from accidentally posting to a year ago. So that's a little best practices thing.
Yep, been there, done that.
Been there, we've all done it, so have I.
John, currently Berlin is the one that closes out our year for us.
And Carol, once you lock a period, how do you unlock it?
So you just go in here and I can either unlock the entire period by, I'm just double clicking, click, or if I want to just say, I want to just lock AP and AR, but I'm not done with bank services and GL. So it's just an on off, you know, I'm just double clicking here.
How can you limit it so that only certain users can lock and unlock, or at least unlock periods?
Basically your security is going to allow you to edit the fiscal calendar or not. So that's in the administrative services, which I'm going to get to shortly.
Got it.
Yeah, so scheduling, if you have recurring things, you can create schedules. So recurring things might be a monthly bill that you get every month, and it's pretty close to being the same thing. Maybe it's your internet bill, maybe it's your ADSS global hosting or something. So you can set up a schedule. I personally like to make them super generic. You don't need to have a schedule for depreciation and the schedule for amortization if they're all on the last day of the month. You just call it MLAST. You can use it in GL and AP. And then you tell it my recurring periods are monthly, and that happens to be on the last day of the month. That way it'll respect whatever, how many days you've got in the month. Okay. So that's scheduling. Let's see what else. Currency, you guys don't have to worry about because you're single currency. Optional fields you guys are using. So optional fields are things that you can assign to transactions, to GL accounts, pretty much to most anything in Sage. I know in your foundation, you've got an optional field that you use to say who is the donor or something like that. Like, you know, when you guys do your disbursements, who's the donor, and that way you can do reports. That's how we've done that with the optional fields.
That's how we, John, that's how we, when we printed, that's the only entity that I know that we do that for is the foundation. And that's how we get the report that shows the discretionary for each person, each trustee.
Right. Yep. So
Yeah,
that
that
way you
makes-
can know how much have I spent or whatnot. So
Yeah, if you don't put it in, if you don't click on optional fields, it doesn't go. under like John Drescher. It doesn't go under the trustee.
Right.
So,
It would show up
um,
as a blank donation, like general or something like that.
Does it,
Yeah.
when you post, does it require those fields for the foundation?
It
no.
does- It doesn't. We could
No, it
probably-
does not.
Yeah, we could make it require it, but,
I think we should.
yeah. Yeah, we can change that.
Because the one or two times that I've written checks that I just,
You miss it, yeah.
it didn't prompt me for anything and I didn't use it. And that's how I found out the hard way.
Right, yeah, we all find things out the hard way.
Yeah.
Multiple contacts, we'll talk about that when we get into AP. Tax services handles sales tax. So if you were selling things, and had to collect sales tax, we set that up here. Even if you're not collecting sales tax, you have to set something up. So we've got everything set for non-taxable, Maryland, bank services, that's where transactions go. Again, bank services is under common services because you can have transactions that flow into bank services from AP, from accounts receivable, accounts payable, and from the bank. If you had payroll in Sage 300, they would receive those transactions as well. So bank services is where cash management happens, okay? Something to understand about Sage, as you can see, we've got many modules: accounts payable, receivable, bank services. We've got some things that you don't use. Those modules flow up to the general ledger, but the general ledger does not flow back to those modules. So if you've got an adjustment to accounts payable, it needs to come from accounts payable. Otherwise, your GL and your AP will no longer tie. Auditors are famous for telling people to make adjustments to AP, and then next year, they're like, well, why doesn't it tie? It's like, well, it's because of your auditor's adjustments. So I always tell people to use another account if they're doing journal entries against accounts payable, so that your AP and your GL will always tie. Same goes with cash. If you're using the bank rec, you can't do a GL journal entry into the bank cash account because, again, it will not update bank rec. So again, we'll talk about that when we talk about the bank rec. So those,
For our banks is Sage like integrated with our bank? Meaning, do we automatically are transactions automatically imported into Sage?
no, but they can be. So that's something that y'all don't know about because it was a feature that was added at some point. So yes, the answer is reconcile e-statements. You can connect to your banks. And again, we can chat about that on, I think, what is it, Tuesday or Wednesday of next week? One day next week. But yeah, we can turn that on and maybe it'll make your lives easier, hopefully. I use it personally, yep.
Felicia, question for you for the Drescher Foundation, for instance. How do the bank transactions get into Sage right now?
Just by AP, you mean like when Berlin writes a check?
Yeah, or
She writes a check, she goes into payables, she AP transactions, she enters the information, fills out all the fields, and then goes to print the check.
Yeah,
And then when you
so,
post it, it goes over
right.
to,
So in a payment batch, you tell the system what bank code you're using. So in this example, it's CCB, whatever that is.
Mhm.
So when I post this $6,079 check will show up in bank CCB.
we've,
So,
John, we've entered all of our bank information. We've entered like banks 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, and then have to fill out the name, the account number, stuff like that. And then put it to an entity. So like the foundation knows that First National Bank, bank account number 1 is belongs
Associated
to
with,
the foundation.
Right.
Does that answer your question? Is that what you're
yeah,
asking?
yeah. So basically, once again, what happens is any cash related transaction, whether it's a bank or a AP check or an accounts receivable receipt, or a refund back to a customer, which you probably will never have. Those are all cash related transactions. When these transactions are posted, it'll do two things. It's going to send a series of debits and credits to the general ledger. It's also going to send that bank transaction to bank services, so it'll be available for you to reconcile at the end of the month.
Got it.
So, yep, so the pathway for cash transactions starts at whatever the module, and then through bank services, and then, Gent GL. Okay. Administrative services, once again, things that you pretty much set and forget. But this is where I added you, John, as a user last week. So you just put in the name, the password, check off password never expires. Otherwise, you'll get prompted, I think, every 60 or so days, which can be rather annoying. And then the next thing to your question about accesses. So if we go, for example, to common services, here are the security options for common services: maintain company info, maintain the fiscal calendar, maintain optional fields, and then import and export, maintain schedules. So either someone can maintain the fiscal calendar or they can't. So you would set up a security group. We'll just call it full access, select all, hit add. And it's going to take, now when you guys hit add, it takes a while, because what's happening is it's propagating this new security group across all the databases. Well, you have like 52 or something, even though they're not in use. It's got to propagate across all of that. So, if you were to add some new security groups and you click save or add and you're like, what is it doing? It's propagating across all your databases. So just go get a cup of coffee and then, it'll be done. So the next thing you would do is you would assign these users to, or security groups to specific users. So if you look under yours, I don't think there's any additional users other than admin in this sample company. But you can see, the group ID. You might have someone who's only allowed to do accounts payable, but they don't do GL or something like that. So you can really dial down what you want people to be able to do,
I don't think I've ever been in security groups, Carol. I've only been in user authorizations. And then, of course, with Berlin and I,
Right.
we just have both of us have full access right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So back in the day when you guys had the 50 databases that were mostly active, I'm pretty sure this was more heavily used, because you might have had somebody who was just doing AP or just doing, journal at GL or something.
Right.
So yeah, these three kind of go together.
Okay.
Customization directories, all that does is it tells us where your check forms reside. So that's nothing you're ever really going to change. Data activation is when when I upgrade you, I install the new version and then I activate it in each company. So again, this isn't really something you'll do. UI profiles is where you can do some low-level customizations to your UIs, which are user interface screens. Again, probably not something you really use a lot. Visual process flows, I'll show you that in a minute. Data integrity, This allows you to check and see if there's anything common issue with any of your modules. And when I say common issue, it's not going to test every single thing that might ever go wrong with your database because you'd be here all day. But the most common things like orphan records or calculated total doesn't equal or some data integrity issues. So that's where that's done. Okay. Restart maintenance. When you open Sage, it might say there's a restart record. Check restart maintenance to see blah, 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 blah. So what happens is a restart record is a bookmark. So if you are in the middle of printing checks and for whatever reason you close the screen, it's going to know that you have a process that you didn't finish. Or if you're importing something into Sage and it runs into a validation error, it's going to create a restart record. So you can read what they are here. I don't think there are any. Database dump and load, that's a backup utility. Mainly I use it before I do upgrades, just to make sure, just in case something happens. Administrative reports shows who's got access to what, user authorization report and user activity report. It doesn't say a lot, but it gives you some, like I said, low-level user activity info. So that's administrative services and common services that impact how your Sage works in your company's, basic setup. So the next thing we were going to chat about today was general ledger. So general ledger setup. So when we're creating a new database, there's certain things that have to be set up before you can start adding accounts and before you can start adding transactions. So options dictate things like what is my retained earnings account? What is my default source code for journal entries? So if you always have to type GLJE, if you come here, you can fix that and just make it so GLJE always comes up. It tells you how many years of fiscal sets to retain. My recommendation is that you always keep at least 7. And then if you're using Sage 300 budgeting, you can have up to 5 budgets, your original one, your second one, your new one. I've never had anyone use more than 2, but you could. And then this just lets you lock that down if you don't want it to be changed. Allow posting to previous years, you always want checked. Because that allows you to enter adjustments, like if once you're wrapping up 2025, you want to still be able to post into 2025, even though you're in 2026. Use provisional posting. Provisional posting lets you post it provisionally, which means it's not really posted, but you can see what your trial balance is going to look like once you post it. Forced listing of batches, don't check it. It's annoying. It means before you can post any batch, you have to print it. And that's just so annoying. I don't know why anyone would want it, but you can have it if you do. This tells us what your current fiscal year is. You can see it's sample data. It's kind of bold. Now your segments. Are you guys single segment GL accounts, Felicia, or sets 2? Do you have 2 or?
I don't know. I don't.
All right.
It's just one account number per.
So you don't have like a department or like 4000-101 or something like that.
The foundation has multiple pieces to their GL accounts, but none of the other vendors do. None of the other companies do.
Okay, so this is where that's defined. You tell the system like your account should always be the first segment. You define how long it's going to be. And then if you've got additional segments like department or something like that, how long is that going to be?
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, so that again, set it and forget it, you
Yeah,
know.
That's just our
Rarely,
foundation.
yeah. And then once you define your, what GL accounts you can have, you would define your account structures. So you can have one that's just the account number. You might have one that has the account and the division. So again, set it, forget it. You don't really have to go into this very often. Segment codes, all segment codes are validated. So if you do have a second or third segment, you have to define it here or else you can't use it. Okay. So if I tried to enter an account 4000-301, it would say 301 doesn't exist. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see, source codes again. These are just the things that identify what kind of entry something is. They come with the program, so I mean you can create custom ones, but for example, if it's an accounts payable invoice, the source code is always going to be APIN, you know. If it's a AP payment, it'll be APPY, for example. Okay. So that's what that does. And again, it makes it easier for you to identify where a transaction came from, you know, in case you're researching it. In the general ledger, you can create recurring entries. Do you have any of these, Felicia?
I do not.
Okay.
Don't think so, no.
So if you did, like if you had depreciation that you do either monthly or annually or something like that, you would set that up here. You'd assign a schedule code. So the difference between a recurring entry and a regular entry is that a recurring entry, no, let me back up. A regular entry has a date and a fiscal period. A recurring has a schedule and a start date and possibly an expiration date. Okay. And it shows, you know, when the last time it was run. So if you have any entries that you are entering the same darn thing every single month, that's where a recurring entry can save you guys some time.
Berlin
Okay.
might have something set up, but I've
Okay.
never set this up
Yeah,
for
so
what
if
I
you
do.
go into GL setup and then you can just sort of scroll through and see if there are any. And that's, yep. So
Okay.
it's a shortcut. So optional fields, we talked about optional fields. Um, so these are the optional fields associated with the general ledger. So here's accounts and transaction details. So there's only two places you can assign an optional field in GL. So this again is where your foundation comes in. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, and this is where you can make it required. So if you had, for example, you wanted to make the donor required, you just come into the GL, to the optional field. And I think it actually originates in AP though. So wherever it originates, you tell it whether it's required or not by just double clicking here.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It actually looks like
So,
it is required, at least per the GL.
well, is it? Okay. So I'm gonna say no because I'm not changing anything here. Um, account groups comes with the software, but when you're adding in a GL account, you want to assign it to whatever kind of account group it is. So cash, AR, other current, etc. And you can you can create your own custom ones if you want. All right, so that's pretty much everything for GL setup. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at when you're setting up a new company, the first thing you do is you fill in all your info for the setup. Then you start building your chart of accounts. So the chart of accounts icon is a multi-purpose icon that allows you to access all of these icons here. So accounts, Account history is here. Budget maintenance is here. Transaction history is here. So you can get to pretty much everything, not fiscal set comparison, but everything else you can get to. So if I'm looking at this, for example, cash account, and maybe something's off and I need to research, I can click transactions and I can search. These are all my transactions up to and including the period ending up here. If I want to only include certain kinds of transactions, like maybe I just want AP payments. If I click on that, it's only going to show those transactions. So that's, we looked at source codes earlier. That's what the point is for source codes. If you want to just look at GLJEs, you can look, so you can filter by a single source code, okay? When you're looking at a transaction, if you want to look a little more about it, I'm gonna get rid of that. Let's say I wanted to look at this one and I'm like, what on earth are we doing here? I can double click. It's going to open up. This is the journal entry that received, that sent this data to the GL. Okay. So when you're looking at a posted journal entry, if you have one of these little square with the orange drill down buttons, then you can go down to the module where that transaction originated. Okay. So I can tell that this transaction originated somewhere other than the general ledger for two ways. One, it says ARPY, so it tells me it came from accounts receivable. And I have this drill down button. So if I click drill down, it's going to take me all the way to the original transaction. In this example, it was an AR receipt, and I can see that it came from this customer. This was the document number being paid, etc. So that's how you can easily research GL transactions. So for that reason, when you're looking for something in the GL, of course, you can always print out a report. The problem with a report is it's static. And if you need to look something up, you're not going to really be able to look it up from a hard copy of the general ledger listing. But here in my transaction history, I can double click. I can say, oh, right, that's this entry, and then figure out, hopefully. And then again, if it came from ARAP or bank services, you can drill down and look at that transaction. You're going to notice a button here called reverse. This reverse button should only ever be used if the entry originated in general ledger. So I run into people whose accounts payable doesn't tie to the GL. And one of the frequent mistakes people make is they hit reverse for something that came from AP. So your general ledger will get corrected, but your AP, it doesn't push that transaction back down to AP. So I really wish they would take this button away if it doesn't come from GL, but they haven't, so they probably won't. But that's just something, to be aware of. So if you have a journal entry that maybe you did it wrong or posted to the wrong period or whatever, you can click reverse. And then it asks you what you want to do. Do I want to just reverse this entry, or do I want to reverse the entire batch? And then I can create a new batch, and then I can click process and it would reverse this whole entry. So that's convenient. All right, so that's GL transaction history. When I'm looking at my chart of accounts, I can see basically the trial balance here, okay? And you can pick what period you want to look at. You can also say, I only want to look at account 4,000 and after. So here we'll hit this go button. So you can see, remember we were talking about account structures and divisions and so on. You can see here's account 4,000 and then here's 4,000-100. This account has 3 segments. So you said your foundation has some of those, Felicia?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, so you can see that. Typically, people only segment the income statement accounts. You sometimes see the others, but usually it's only the revenue and expense. So that's the chart of accounts. Again, you can do a whole lot from here. If I click open, it's going to show me that account number. So let's look at that next. So if I go into accounts, if I want to create a new account, I need to know a few things. I need to know what is my structure. So if I try to create, let's just say 9999, oh, that exists. We'll make it 9998. Let's say no. So 9998, test. If I don't have the right structure and I try to add this account, I'm going to get an error. This does not match the format of structure code account div. So, you need to actually know. In this example, it would be just ACC. If in doubt, I think the easiest way to add a new account is to find the account that's next door to what I'm going to add. So, for example, if I wanted to add 1275, I would just find this account next door, click open, and then I can just type 1275, other, whatever. And notice it's going to inherit the structure, it's going to inherit the normal balance, it's going to inherit the account type, the account group. So that saves you a little guesswork. The most important thing when you're creating a new account is to get the account type correct, because this determines whether the account in question is going to close out to retained earnings at the year end. So what I usually recommend people do before they create their new year is just take a quick glance at your chart of accounts and make sure your account types look correct. Because if you have an income statement account flagged as a balance sheet, it will not close, and vice versa. So that's really the main thing. Pretty much anything else, if you make a mistake, like put it to the wrong account group, that's easy to fix, no biggie, but you do want to make sure the type is correct. So again, the 3 account types are income statement, balance sheet, retained earnings. Okay. So you can review that just by opening up your chart of accounts and scrolling down and make sure, that they're correct. So like if I saw a balance sheet in the middle of all my income statements, that would stick out and I'd have to, I'd check that out, make sure that was correct. Okay. So once again, the accounts, this is where you add a new account. You have to know the structure code, the type, the normal balance, the account group. Control account, what that lets you do is if it's, for example, accounts payable or one of the cash accounts, if you click on this, then the subledger tab will pop up and it will only let you post from, for example, AP or AP and bank services and AR. So what that does is it prevents things like journal entries from getting posted into a control account. Okay. Roll up is another feature that I don't think you guys would need, but if I clicked on roll up, then I could say I could create parent-child relationships with accounts. So what I mean by that is, say you have one main account and then the others roll up into that. And then if you print a trial balance, you can print roll up method and that will shrink down your trial balance. Again, that's usually for people who have a crazy number of accounts in their roll up. Account permissions, again, probably not really going to be relevant for you guys, but if you had a large staff, you might say, well, I don't want anyone except specific people to have access to, for example, the payroll accounts or something that you wanted to keep confidential. So that's where you would grant permissions. Since it's only the three of you, I kind of doubt that that's really going to be an issue, but that's what that is. Fiscal set comparison is exactly what it sounds like. So if I go to account 4,000, which is a revenue account, I want to compare actuals between 2020 and, for example, 2019. You know, I can just do that right here so we can see like the change. Again, I don't know if you'd ever use that, but it's there if you do. Create accounts, probably not going to use that either, but that's a way to very quickly create accounts that would go with a new division. So if you added a new department and foundation and wanted to add revenue and expense accounts for all of, you know, for that foundation without having to do it one at a time, that's where you would do that. So that's pretty much everything. Now, do you guys do budgets at all, Felicia?
We currently do not. John, we will be doing budgets in the future.
We will be, yeah.
Okay. All right, so budget maintenance. So I'm going to go to my first revenue and expense account. So you type in the account number. I click my go button, which is this thing here. Okay. And remember, we talked about the budget sets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, most people just use one. A good example of when you might have a second budget set would be if something extraordinary happened that you wanted to maintain your original budget, but things are going to change. COVID is a great example. So we had this budget, COVID, you know, shut down. A lot of that didn't happen. Let's have an updated budget, but we want to still look at my original budget. That's where you might do a second budget. So what you can do is there's a couple ways to do this. One is like this, one account at a time, kind of tedious. The other is that you can import it from Excel. So I'll just review the most commonly used methods. So the first method is fixed amount. So fixed amount, let's just change that to 250. I'm putting in a minus because it's a revenue account. And then I'm going to click replace. And now I can see here are my 250s and there's my total. Spread amount gives you a total. So if I say 25, 2.5, and I hit go, but wait a minute, what did I do wrong? 2.5 spread, replace, there we go, and then it divides it by 12, okay. So you can also do a base and say it starts out at 25,000 and goes up 10% a month. Or base amount increase would be it starts at 25,000 and we add 1,000 every month. Copy as is would be copy what we have in my current to my budget. So again, this goes account by account, which of course would be a little tedious. What you can actually do is go file, export. I'm not going to save my changes. And then it will pull out your budget information. You enter it in Excel and then import it in. And what I would recommend is that we just do a session together where we do that. because it's a little beyond the scope. I'm going to do it anyway, just so you'll see. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to overwrite. So file layouts in Sage can be a little tricky. So let's find that. Sage, import templates. And here we are. So, yeah, it looks pretty scary. So what you would do is you would only elect to export, one fiscal year out. And then here are my net changes per period. You can see. So these are the field names that you would see if you opened up the SQL tables. So again, we can look at this together. I can create you a template, which will be a little more friendly than this raw thing here. But the point is, just about anything in Sage can be exported and just about anything can be imported. So when you guys have called and said, hey, I need a new data set, it's going to look like this company. What I have is I have a folder on your server that has new company imports is probably what I called it. And I create your data and then I import certain things like maybe your chart of accounts, your vendor groups, your tax services set up, things like that. So you guys don't have to do that manually every single time. So just like I said, pretty much everything can be imported and exported. So yeah, be aware that you can do your budgets when you're ready. All right, so that is accounts. So now we're going to look at GL transactions. So just like the chart of accounts icon, the batch list icon is a multi-purpose icon that allows you to do pretty much everything here. Batch list, journal entry, post batches. I like this view myself because you can see at a glance everything. So if I want to create a new batch, I can create a new batch. If I want to open a batch, we can just open. There it is. You can see this is a subledger batch from inventory. You won't have inventory, but I can drill down and get to my original transactions. So when I create a new batch, best practices is to give it a description. You might call it monthly, whatever, something that's meaningful. Entry description, again, something descriptive. So fields in Sage, document date and posting date, they're usually going to be the same, especially for general ledger. So in accounts payable, they may be different. For example, you might have you might get a invoice next week from some work that was done in September, and maybe you've already closed September. So you want to enter a document date of 9/28, for example, but you want it to go into the GL as of October. So your document date would be 9/28, your posting date would be 10/1. The document date's going to allow your AP to age appropriately, but the posting date is what dictates when it hits the GL. This posting date is not to be confused with the date you did the entry. I ran into this with a client a couple weeks ago where their transactions were way out, and we finally figured out that the person who used to do the data entry was using the posting date as the day she keyed in the batch. Well, it doesn't matter, when you keyed in the batch is irrelevant. What fiscal period it hits the GL is relevant. So this dictates your year and period. So that's important. source code. So if it's coming from GL, it's usually going to be a GLJE. There are two entry modes, which I will show you, normal and quick. And then auto reverse. So if you're doing an accrual that you want to reverse next period, you would simply click auto reverse and tell it I want it to reverse next period or a specific period, and you'd specify that. So normal versus quick. So we'll just say AJE1, and we'll just say auditor, AJE 4,000. $150. Now, when I click the insert key, and I am hitting the insert key on my keyboard, that's how you add another line to an entry in Sage. Notice my reference and description are blank. If I do a quick entry and I press that same insert key, it pulls the reference and description down. So you would mostly use quick because it saves typing unless each line is going to be different for some reason. Okay, so there's my journal entry. So I'm going to hit add, and that's a journal entry. So when I click add, it rolls me to entry 2, and then it lets me enter that. And then when I finish, I can close it, and then I can set it ready to post, which is here. And then I can hit post. I can also print the batch if I want to view it, check my work. So remember, our print destination is set to preview. So here's your batch listing for review. And if I like what I see, it looks good, then I can hit post. You probably have noticed this, Felicia, but at some point a few versions ago, they added a post all button. So what post all will do is it will post everything that has been set ready to post. Okay. So if I hit post all, and it's posting now. This brings me to what happens when you get error batches. So if you'll notice, you've got error batch here. An error batch happens if something is found when it goes to post that the system doesn't like. So what you can do is I'm going to click show posted and deleted. I'm going to make my description a little wider. So it's saying error batch entries from batch 247. So I want to see what was wrong. So if I highlight batch 247, I come all the way across to my number of errors column up here. I can click on that one, and it's going to print my posting error report. And it's going to tell me why it didn't post. Cannot post to a future year. Okay, that makes sense. So in the sample data, this entry is flagged for 2025, and the sample data doesn't go past 2021. So it tells you exactly why you have an error. You can go fix the problem and then go ahead and post it. So what you don't want to do with the posting batch, especially if it came from AR or AP or bank services, is you don't want to say, oh, it's an error, let me delete it. You don't want to do that because then once again, your subledgers are not going to be in balance. So you figure out what the problem is, correct the problem, and then you can post it. Okay. So in this GL batch list screen, you can narrow it down to a specific subledger. So if I just want to look at AR, for example, now I'm only seeing AR batches, bank services, BK, AP. Okay, so this restricts my source ledger to what I want to see. If I don't want to be slogging through all these old posted things, I just uncheck show posted and deleted, and then I'm only looking at my unposted items. Okay, so that is GL batch list. So if you have a batch that came from the general ledger, and you wish to reverse it, you can from here. So let's find one here. So if I go here, and let's say I want to reverse this one. Why don't I have a reverse button? Because it's not posted. Let me post it. Okay. So let's pretend that was already posted. So I'm going to open it back up. And now I can click reverse. And I can say, yeah, I want to reverse this one. I'm going to create a new batch. And then I can process. And now it's put a, it's created a new batch reversing this one. So that's how the reverse batch. Once again, you only want to do that if it starts with GL. Okay. So that's transactions. Reports. So these are where all your reports in the GL are in this folder here. So we've got the chart of accounts, pretty self-explanatory. So this is just your list of your chart of accounts. It tells it what kind of account it is. B, balance sheet. DR, normal balance is debit. F, what is that? Functional currency. I'm not even sure what that is. Post in detail, which is what you always want. Structure is ACC. Is it a control account? Is it an auto allocating account? Are you tracking quantities? Which I don't think you'll be doing that at all. So that's your chart of accounts. Trial balance. So you've got options for your trial balance. So you've got your report, worksheet, quantity, which won't apply to you, provisional quantity won't apply. Then you can have provisional included, provisional separate, or provisional worksheet. So if you've got any provisionally posted transactions, you can print a provisional trial balance that will include those transactions. Felicia, do you guys ever do provisional posting?
I don't, Carol. I don't know if Berlin or Laura does, but no, I've never done this.
Okay, so what provisional posting, it's sort of like a try before you buy posting. So if you provisionally post a batch in the general ledger, you can see what the results of that batch is going to be before you actually commit. Okay. So you provisionally post from the batch list screen here. So let's see, let's find one. So let's just say I want to post this guy provisionally. I hit provisionally post. It's going to say, do you really want to? I'm going to say yes. It's going to provisionally post. Well, of course, I picked a big one. Okay, so now my provisional posting is completed. So now if I go to GL Reports Trial Balance, I can say, let me look at my report. Okay, just plain old trial balance as of fiscal period 5, 2020. Pretty standard here. I can do provisional included, which is going to look the same, but the numbers will be different. I'll show you provisional separate. So you can see, I think this is probably the most useful. So we can see here's a provisional number, the bank account for payroll. Here's my provisional difference. And here's what it's going to be, after my provisional posting. So you can see the results of provisional posting, and what it's going to be should I decide to really post it. And if it does what you hope it'll do, then you can go ahead and post it permanently. So that's handy for auditors adjustments. If they send you like, here are the adjustments, this is a trial balance I want to see, you can use a provisional report to make sure it's doing what you're expecting it to do. Of course, you can choose what year and period you're printing. You can print balances or net changes, okay? You can sort by account or segment. Your segments, I doubt that you would ever do by segments, but if you wanted to, you could. Do I want to include inactive accounts? Most people don't. And then here's where you can do a from to, like I only want to see income statement accounts. So in Sage ranges, we'll always start with a blank and end with a bunch of Z's. So the blank means the lowest number, the Z's mean the highest possible number. So don't blank out your Z's or else you won't get anything. So people, frequent mistake, they go, well, I don't have Z's, so I'm going to print this, and then you're not going to get anything because you're asking Sage to give you from nothing to nothing. So that's why you're getting nothing. So if I leave my Z's in, it's going to just start from the beginning, end at the end. So if I go to the very end, and by the way, my trial balance shows the net income. So all that's doing is it's taking all of the accounts that are flagged as income statements, adding the debits and credits, and giving you your net. And that should tie to your financial statements. If it does not, then either you have an account that's flagged incorrectly, or more likely you've added an account that's not added yet to your income statement or balance sheet. Okay. Transactions listing. So this is going to list your GL detail. So you can do from to fiscal periods. You can now span fiscal years. So if you needed to see like from period 11 of 2019 through period 5 of 2020, you can, or whatever. So I'm just going to hit print. And this is going to be your GL listing.
This is the one I use the most. So
Yeah. So you can see, here's my ending balance, so on. So that
Carol,
is,
can this feature look back all time?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Can this feature look back all time? Like, can I dive into one account back 20 years?
If you have data for it, then the answer is yes.
Okay.
You can tell by clicking on the little calendar, and then you can hit this down arrow. This is going to show you the earliest year of data that you guys have. So if you wanted to do the cash account over the course of 20 years, yeah, if that data set existed then absolutely. Yep.
So just making sure I understand the whole setup in Sage. It looks like we only really have two sub ledgers, right? AP and AR. Everything else runs to the GL.
Bank services, yeah.
And that, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys don't have order entry, you don't have project and job costing. That might have been handy at one point in your hotels. You don't have purchase orders, you don't have inventory control, order entry, but of course the sample data has all that. But yeah, so yours, you wouldn't have anything beyond intelligence reporting, which we'll talk about as well.
How often do we tie up these sub ledgers to the GL?
Josh, John, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me. Would it only be like when we close out the end of the month or the year, or?
So what best practices would be is when you do your month end, you run out an aging and you make sure it ties to your GL.
So that would be maybe Laura or Berlene doing it at the end of the month?
Yeah, I would assume in an operating company, it would be done monthly, but as you know, we have so few transactions that flow through here. I don't know if quarterly or annually or what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do it no less than quarterly because if you run into an issue, it's going to be a lot easier to remember what it might be if it's within the last quarter than it would be like at the end of the year. What did I do in January? I don't know. I don't remember, you know.
Felicia, I'll talk to Brilliant about it. That's
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, John, I just don't know. Carol, so I've always been told that ACPAC holds 7 years, and you're saying that we can go back even longer?
Well, it depends. So if you go to your general ledger setup and you choose options,
Mm-hmm.
on the posting tab, it's going to tell you how many years of fiscal sets. Now, you can have up to 99 if they haven't been cleared previously. So you might have 7 because before Sage went to subscription, I think you guys had what they called the corporate series or the mid-range series. There used to be, I can't remember what they were called, but there were 3 levels, and the corporate series, I think, let you save up to 7 years, and the enterprise series only, or let you go up to 99. When Sage went to subscription, they did away with those additions, and it was all, so you can look in your GL setup options and you can see how many years of fiscal sets you guys retain, and you can change it. You can change it at any time.
Yeah, we always have to go back more than 7, and it's just Berlin can finagle her way around and find stuff going back further, but I mean, it'd be lovely if it was already there. And
Yeah, so what I would do is in all your active companies, I would go to GL setup options and change that field to 99.
yep,
And that way you won't purge ever, unless you intentionally do so. And hard drive space is not a premium like it used to be. So, in my opinion, there's only one reason ever to purge, and that's if your data set is getting so large that it's getting just absolutely unwieldy and it's taking you a long time to do, queries or run reports because it's churning through so much old stuff. But
Yeah.
you guys aren't, each of your companies, I mean, you guys have a lot of companies, but each one is not enormous. So I don't see you having an issue there.
Yeah, Felicia, we
Awesome.
should. I can do that. It's super easy. I'm already pulling it up for Sky Asset Management.
Okay.
But I agree. There's no reason. We're not Enron, so there's no reason to limit it.
Exactly.
I'd go
Yeah.
back 99 years for everything.
Yep.
I would.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what did it say, John, originally? Was it
7. It's 7.
7?
It's 7 at least for Sky Asset Management, which I don't know if that's a default. I would bet Christopher put that in there to Carol's point. I actually bet it was to limit space, limit storage.
Right.
But that problem has essentially been solved.
I
since
also
Christopher
think that it might have been 7 because you guys had the mid-range edition and that was the maximum. The Sage 300, like I said, used to have editions. 1, 2, and 3. I can't remember what they were called, but I think it was ACPAC 100 edition, 200 and 300 or something like that. And the mid-range edition, you could have as many. The opening one, you could only have like 3 companies and 3 years. And then the mid-range, you could have 7 with unlimited companies. The enterprise, you could have 99 years and unlimited companies. So I think you guys, and I think the corporate edition had a cap on how many users of 10. Anyway, that's history, but that's probably why it's set to 7.
So
Yeah, but
changing those years right now, am I
It's
going to
not
be
go-
able to go back to 2001 right now? Or
probably
does that?
not. No, yeah, it's only gonna maintain, it's not gonna bring anything that is gone back. Now, try it. The worst that can happen is nothing.
Yeah.
And a quick way to check that would be to go into GL accounts, chart of accounts, and go to, let's just say 2010 and see if there's anything there. So see how it says no history? That's going to be
Okay.
your answer. Yep.
Okay.
So you can play with the chart of accounts and see how far back you guys can go.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, that's the GL listing. Again, when I'm doing research, again, I prefer using the chart of accounts over the GL listing because again, I can do filters. I can say I only want to see my GLJEs, for example, or I want to be able to drill down to my transactions and see my entire journal entry. If it comes from a subledger like ARPY, I can drill down and see, oh, okay, this was an AR receipt paying this invoice, so you can actually do your research on the screen. Whereas with a report, you have to kind of you can't drill down in a static report. So I like that personally. Source journals, probably not using, but source journals, if you have them set up, you could set it up so that, like print all my GLJEs, and ranges. So, so you can kind of slice and dice your GL using source journals. I've used them occasionally. I'll get an auditor that wants to see all cash related entries. And so we'll use source journals to do that. The batch status report simply shows your batches and their statuses. So I will show you what I mean by that. So we've got the batch number, the description, where did it come up from, the source, how many entries, when was it created, when was it last edited, what's the status, posted, deleted, printed, yes or no, is it a subledger or not, posting sequence, number of errors. So this is where you can do some looking, like an example of why this might be useful. I had a client again whose cash or AP or something didn't tie. So I wanted to see if someone had gone in and deleted any subledger batches. So I said, well, let me just print all my APs. I'm going to only ask for things that were deleted, and then I clicked print and then it showed me, whether someone had deleted a subledger batch. So that's when that kind of report is useful. Otherwise, not so much. Batch listing is just a printout of a batch, whether it's posted or not. Again, you can get to a batch listing from the GL transactions batch list report. Posting journals, so that shows you what posted. So the difference between a batch listing and a posting journal is that a posting journal is going to show what actually posted. So if something rolled into an error batch, it will not have posted. It's been moved to an error batch. So that's where they might be different. Account structures. So the rest of them are basically setup reports. So this just lists my account structures. Yeah, big deal. Not that interesting. Segment codes. Again, this is going to show my departments for the foundation in your example. So this would just list what they are, okay? Which would be helpful if you're trying to familiarize yourself. Source codes, as you're getting to know Sage, the source codes can be useful because it tells you what they are, So what is an APPY? It's an AP payment. What is an APAD, AP adjustment, and so on, okay? So that's just a little cheat sheet. Your source codes. Source journal profiles. If you have created source journals, you can print out the setup there. account groups, that lists your account groups, which in your case would be current assets, current liabilities, and so on. Options. So these are your setup options. So your company profile, your accounts, what's my current fiscal year, what's my default closing account, what are my, so basically the stuff that we looked at first in the GL, which was your GL setup options, that's listed here. Okay. Let's see, recurring entries. We talked about those. If you want to check and see what there might be, you can print that out. So again, these are recurring entries that happen every month, quarter, week, however often. Optional fields and transaction optional fields. These are just going to list what ones you've assigned to what. So again, might be interesting for the foundation because I think that's the only thing. So John, optional fields are fields that you can add to Sage 300 to contain data that you don't already have. They can be validated. That is why we implemented optional fields for you guys, because I think you used to track your foundation entries by typing it in the description or PO, but it doesn't validate. So if you type Megan Drescher with one space versus two spaces between, that's going to show up as separate donors. So by creating the optional fields and having them validate, that ensures us that Megan's name is always typed the same way. Your name is always typed the same way, which, without that, the report gets a little less than useful, and that's why we did it back in the day. So transaction optional field. So what's the difference? A transactional optional field can be attached to a transaction, attached to a debit and a credit. A plain old optional field can be attached to things like a vendor or a GL account, but not necessarily those transactions. So for foundation, you'll see that it's set up as a transaction detail optional field that is set up in AP and then flows into the GL in your case. Okay. So that is the general ledger. I know you're probably getting brain dead. Do you have any questions, either of you?
Carol, I don't now, but I am much more of I'm much more of a kind of get
Hands-on.
my hands dirty and come up with questions
Yep,
type of person. So I kind of just email you if I have them going forward.
absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and I will post this training up on YouTube and I'll give you guys a link.
Great.
And that way you'll be able to review it anytime. And yeah, so what I would do is I'd play around in your data and see what you come up with. Tomorrow we're going to do accounts payable. And I think next week we're going to do the bank rec, which ties AP, and you're only using AR for receipts. So we'll talk about that at some point as well. And then go from there. Another thing you should be aware of that I don't know, you probably aren't using because you guys have been using Sage forever. Intelligence reporting, you have a license for this that comes with your Sage. What intelligence reporting allows you to do is pull data out of the Sage tables and it drops it right into Excel. So the advantage of this is I'm sure Felicia's tried to drop Sage reports into Excel for different reasons. And if so, you probably realize that they don't always come out all that pretty. So a Sage report is designed for presentation, which means print or PDF. doesn't necessarily come out nicely in Excel because there might be headers or multi-rows per record and that kind of thing. So Sage Intelligence allows you to design, analyze analytical reports, create pivot tables and so on. You can also use it for consolidations. If you ever needed a consolidated report that combined financials or had a tab for each entity on your financials, that's where Sage Intelligence comes. And we can look that when you get a little more familiar with the data and how it's set up and whatnot. But just be aware it's available. So, Felicia, do you guys use the financial reporter?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I guess I
Yep.
should talk about that. So the financial reporter, so that again is in general ledger. It pulls data from the general ledger, doesn't pull from AP or AR, it's GL only. They're Excel files that pull out the data in the way you want to see it. So you can either use print financial statements or financial statement designer. The difference is the financial designer opens up the Excel files so you can check or edit or address the formulas that are in the statements. Most people just use print unless they're needing to edit something. But I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of that.
Carol, so when I need to pull a P&L or something, I just go into print financial statements, but there are only two, when I browse, there are only two choices that I really have. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff listed there. Christopher had set up a bunch of stuff, but there's only two that I can choose from to get the report that I want, that Jim wants.
Okay.
And it's, it's under like Excel Novak, which used to be one of our old entities. So I don't want to, if it's working, so I don't want to make any changes, but John may want to.
Yeah.
Is there a different way to set these up so it's not so?
What we can do, I'm going to turn off recording because we're getting into your own stuff now.
Okay.
Okay, let me figure out how to do that here.
It just seems like that's a real old way of doing things. And
yeah,
we might not want to. If I'm getting a Sky P&L, I don't know that I want to go into Novak, but evidently that's how he's set it up, and it does pull up Sky. So, it'll pull up whatever entity you're in. But
right.
Is that the only way to do that?
No. I just got to figure out how to turn off this recording. This is a little pathetic here. I'm a little new to Teams, so I'm still navigating it. Here we go. Stop recording. There we go.